Dear friends, today we are discussing a report on violence against migrants. And of course, as you all know, we are going through a refugee crisis in Europe. At least we call it a crisis because European countries are closing the borders and we have a lot of problems to show any solidarity in solving the problem. But what we address today is actually that migrants and refugees are often subject to violence by other parties amongst themselves, even by caretakers. And this is really not how it should be, of course. In my intervention in the plenary just a moment ago, I have focused on violence against refugee women because they're a particularly vulnerable group. Sometimes they flee their country because of gender-based violence. And then they come here in detention centers, in refugee camps, where they are again subject to gender-based violence. And this is simply not acceptable. They are a group that we should pay specific attention to and address their needs. Women are vulnerable because of sexual violence. There are prostitution networks in refugee camps. They get pregnant, they need safe abortion, they need contraception, emergency contraception, they need separate places for washing, toilets, because all these things have to be addressed, and they are not a priority for our official governments and for the officials of the refugee camps. They just look at the security issues of the camp, and they consider gender-based violence as a domestic problem. It's domestic violence, it is between the refugees themselves, and it's none of their concern. This is simply not acceptable. We really need to provide help, not only medical help, but also psychosocial help. And not only for women, of course, also for children, also for other vulnerable groups, LGBT refugees who often also flee their countries because of persecution, because they are LGBT people. So we need to help these people specifically and provide psychosocial help, which is often lacking in the camps right now. It's not only a responsibility of the countries of first arrival, and we know the example of Greece today, of course, but of many other countries, destination countries, and actually the whole of Europe should take responsibility and send not only some money, but also resources and human resources, asylum, lawyers, psychologists, doctors, nurses, and so on. So today my address is specifically to look into the vulnerable groups and the women. And the Istanbul Convention, which is a convention of the Council of Europe, addresses the fact that there should be some kind of a gender-specific asylum procedure that takes into consideration that women and girls are vulnerable groups. Pregnant women or women who have been victims of rape and sexual violence should not be put in detention. This is simply not acceptable. And today some countries have not ratified and not signed and ratified the Convention of Istanbul. So my plea today is definitely that all the member states of the Council of Europe that didn't sign and ratify the convention yet, that they should do so as soon as possible. Thank you for your attention.